Hello everyone, and I know it's been ages since I have posted anything on my pages, and I shared some posts today in this group for those who weren't aware that I am just recently recovering from a very serious illness, shall we say, that has been very profound for me. And I was thinking, do I do a Facebook Live? I decided to do a video, and I did only because, for one thing, Facebook Live is funny, and I didn't want to, not that I don't want to see people's comments, but I just wanted to be able to just come here and talk about it. Now, granted, if this video uploads, will be a miracle, and if not, I'll end up doing Facebook Live, what are you going to do? But, so first of all, I shared the post that Danny had done on Facebook, giving updates and asking for prayers and healing thoughts for me when I was sick. And I just wanted to thank everyone so much. I took a while before I was able to read all the posts. There was a lot of, I wanted to read everyone's comments. I had so many people had reached out to me either through a text message, a DM, email, and I've been trying to, respond to people now that I'm doing a lot better. And this whole journey has been life-changing for me. I almost died end of March is when I was in the hospital for the second time, and I was really sick and came very close to not coming out on the other side to even be here today. So just a quick synopsis of what had occurred. This all actually started back in January, with what I thought at the time was just a UTI, whatever, usually not a big deal, right? I get on some antibiotics and I end up getting sicker, and then eventually I get better, right? But I truly never really got better. In hindsight, I know that. So in February, a couple weeks later, I ended up the holiday weekend in excruciating pain again. Ended up having to go to the emergency room, and come to find out I had kidney stones. And I have never had kidney stones in my life. I do have family history, though, come to find out, which I did not know. But there was this one little tiny stone that literally, it was so small, but it was causing a blockage where my urethra was, not to become too TMI now. And, it was all infected. It was causing fluid buildup in my kidney. I didn't need lithotripsy at the time because it was so small, but I ended up being admitted into the hospital. And because at the time it just was this one little stone, antibiotics, and they decided to put a kidney stent in to allow the stone to pass. That was the whole point of it. And I just need to say, anybody that has had to have a kidney stent, my heart goes out to you, because that has been the most painful, miserable experience. And I ended up with one for 2.5 months, which, was just insanity. To be in constant pain and be constantly uncomfortable. I couldn't do anything. So, I'm in the hospital for 3 days. I have this procedure, and I get discharged, and I go to have this stent removed, and come to find out, oh no, I need another procedure because the stone moved. And now I do need lithotripsy because there's actually 2 other stones. So the stone found a friend, right? And I'm not happy about this, obviously. They had scheduled my surgery for March 25th, because now, I was in the hospital in February, by the time I get my follow-up and all that, I go back to the doctors, and I get told now I got to have this procedure. I could have cried that day when I walked out of that doctor's office, which was in Cambridge. It wasn't like it was close. So, and I'm still not feeling great. I'm better. I've already done another round of antibiotics, a stronger one this time. And I just, I like had good days, I had bad days. And then, but like the week before I was supposed to have this next procedure, I start to slowly get worse. The pain in my back, the pain in my, because it was all in my left kidney, was getting to the point where I could barely work a full day. And I ended up calling the urologist, and it took him 3 days for him to call me back. And by this time now, I have a fever. I am in a lot of pain. My face, I'm like swollen. I just was so sick. My fevers too were really high. They weren't just low grade. Like they were not, and they weren't totally breaking, and everything hurt. My head hurt, my whole body hurt. So the doctor called me back on a Thursday, and because I had called because I'm like, I need something to help relieve this pain that I'm feeling from the stent, because I couldn't even sit like for more than 15 minutes in the same position, because it just constantly was, it just got to be to the point of unbearable. So I do tell him that I have a fever, and he totally didn't even acknowledge it. He gives me some Toradol and something else to help relieve, because I was having muscle spasms in my bladder constantly, which were so painful. Doesn't even acknowledge the fact that I say that I have a fever. And I'm like, okay, I'm so sick. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I'm not getting any better. And come Saturday, I was just getting sicker each day. And, in my head, I'm like, I talked to the doctor, I told him I had a fever, and he didn't seem concerned, I guess. Like, this is the thoughts that are going through my head. Now, granted, I probably wasn't thinking right. Because I was so sick. Finally, Saturday night, I just couldn't take it anymore. I started to have the shakes, and it wasn't seizures. It's like 12:30 at night, and I just can't take it anymore. I hate going to the ER, and I hate ambulances, but I woke up Danny and was like, you need to call an ambulance. I need to go to the hospital. And he's looking at me like, you sure? I'm like, I couldn't even fathom trying to get out of my bed and walk down my stairs. And even if Danny could have carried me to get to the hospital, that's literally 5 minutes from my house. So I get to the hospital, and they realize that I have sepsis, that I've become septic at this point. Luckily blood work, they can identify this stuff really fast. So I get transferred to Beverly Hospital. And so a lot of what I'm going to just kind of say right now, time for me, like the timing of certain events, I don't really have a clear picture because I was so sick. Sometimes I just knew it was night or day by the fact if it was light or dark out. So I get transferred to Beverly Hospital. They have to identify why I'm septic, for one thing. And I started to have a really hard time breathing. Now, I've been asthmatic my whole life. So I'm in the hospital, and the breathing thing is getting really bad. They were giving me, they were trying to manage my pain that I was in. It's also the middle of the night. So it's just the hospitalist. There's no specialists that are going to be able to come see me at this point. And my breathing's just getting worse and worse. And I'm actually arguing with the nurses. I'm like, give me a breathing to and I put up such a fuss, apparently, which is fine. They thought originally that I might have had a blood clot in my lungs. So they take me to get a CAT scan, and now I am in the ICU. Now, when I get to the ICU, the 4 or 5 days, so, now it's probably Sunday, right, at this point. I believe I was in the ICU from Sunday until Wednesday. And some of the events I'm going to describe, like what actually happened in my head at that time, because I was in and out of consciousness, and what actually was transpiring in real life, don't necessarily correlate together, because I was so out of it. And I've actually had to ask Danny to fill in the blanks, because there's a lot that I don't remember about those first those days in the ICU, especially because they could not break my fever. That was one of the biggest things. And I was spiking really high ones for an adult. So there was huge concern. So I get up, I'm in the ICU now, and I do remember certain things like very clearly. Other stuff, it's a blur. So they ruled out that I did not have a blood clot. So that, was good. But they still did not know why. The breathing thing, then lab work came back. They thought I could pause. So I'm kind of just, they thought I was in congestive heart failure, but thank God I wasn't. So this is like what I know from, say, the medical standpoint of what I remember a doctor telling me or what someone has told me. So they, of course, I was poked and prodded. It's so many times. I swear I had so much blood taken out of me. I'm surprised I didn't need a transfusion. They were taking it in between my knuckles because there was no other places to even draw blood from at this point. And the first thing I can kind of remember is the doctor coming in and asking me if there was someone that, a family member, whoever that, could be with me because they had news to share with me. I somehow managed to call Danny, and I just remember handing the phone to the doctor. I don't even remember what the doctor said, but I just remember they had identified I had a fungal infection in my blood that had grown from the cultures they have taken. This is when after that, there's a lot that I don't really remember. So Danny, of course, came, and I can't even, there's no words that I can describe to thank him for what he did and what he had to deal with, and the way he took care of me and the family and updates. Like, he is a saint, I swear. He, we jokingly call him Saint Danny, and he earned it through this whole fiasco. And so the first few days, like from what I remember, it was like, so now like I think it's like Monday or whatever, it was just bad news. Because then after the fungal infection, they identified a bacteria that was also infecting my blood. Then the next day there's another bacteria. So I had 2 separate bacteria and a fungal infection. And the type of fungus and the fact that it had infected my blood was like a 1 in a billion chance. Like, there was never going to be a way to identify where I even contracted it. I had the best infectious disease doctor. He saved my life. I will always be grateful to him because he never gave up on me. And when I say this next statement, I'm not trying to say I did not get good care, but a lot of the doctors, because there's like a team of them that obviously were coming in to take care of me, they had me dead and buried. But my infectious disease doctor just kept saying, we're going to stay the course. This is what we're going to do. Where the other doctors, this is what I found out afterwards, were telling Danny, are you prepared? Because the mortality rate of what she has is not good. And I was not getting any better. My fevers weren't breaking, and more stuff was happening. Apparently, I went into complete kidney failure at one point, which I didn't know. And I also was in respiratory failure at one point. I do remember being put on oxygen. I had a battery of tests. Like, I had a scope down to take pictures of my heart. Luckily, I don't really remember that, but so this is where that's like going on. And that's like a little bit of what I remember and what I was told. Myself, though, what I remember, because I was in and out, Danny told me like my eyes would be open and he could tell like I just wasn't there. And being unconscious, I don't realize I'm having a near-death experience, to be honest. At one moment, I kind of did, because funny enough, I did actually text some people and responded to like a few DMs. How and I did this, I don't even know. And the fact that they even made sense is like a miracle. But my good friend Carrie, which people have seen me do lives with, who has a great strong connection with my loved ones on the other side, I can remember texting her, Carrie, I'm dying. And I know she responded back, no, you're not. And then a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't really remember everything she said. I just kind of like my family was around me. That I was going to be okay. It was going to be a battle. And, at this point, luckily Danny had, put out the call for prayer. And I knew like she was sending me healing energy and stuff like that. But at that moment, I just knew, but I don't remember anything like that afterwards. So unconsciously, I can just remember feeling like I was burning up from the inside out because of the fevers. And then at other points being so cold. And I just can remember being so tired, so sick. Everything hurt in my body. Everything hurt. And I just wanted it to be over because it just felt like it was never going to be over. And, if you're on this page, obviously I do tarot card readings and oracle readings. So we got some moo going on. But I do remember seeing my mom and my Nana and my Aunt Denise, and I knew there were other family members around, and they were standing far away from me. Now, like I said, I'm unconscious, like I'm not awake. And I remember looking at them, and they just all kept shaking their head no at me. And they wouldn't come, they were standing way at a distance. Looking at it like now, after doing meditations and reflecting, like, they were standing away from me because it wasn't my time to go. If they were too close, I think it would have made it too easy for me to let go, because I was almost having this fight inside my head where I'm so sick and I'm so tired and I just want it to end. And then I would hear a thought like, no, you can't. Because at one point, my boys, I have two kids, I have a 23-year-old and a 12-year-old. I'm like, you can't leave your boys. And I do remember saying to Danny, I want to see the boys now. And he said there was like this urgency in my voice. So of course he went and got them. I do remember talking to them, but not understanding why they were so upset, because I really don't realize, I don't know at this point what the doctors are telling Danny about how serious my condition was, and it wasn't looking good. I didn't realize I almost like how close I was to dying. I really didn't know or even comprehend. It wasn't until afterwards, until I was in a regular room and I was feeling better. The first time I heard a nurse say that, I was like, what? What are you talking about? Even though I texted Carrie saying I'm dying, which I at that point had blocked out, I guess. And I'm hearing them say this. I'm like, what are they talking about? I almost just died. And I really had no idea. Like that whole time frame, it's like one big blur. Obviously I kind of remember nurses coming in. The best way I could describe it, the way I described it to someone was, in that state, even though I was not conscious, I was fighting to stay awake, if that makes any sense. So during that time, like, it's like, I had a voice in one ear and another voice in another ear that was like, you can just let go. And I remember being like, what does that mean? Like, and I'm like almost arguing with myself, like, what does that mean? Just let go. Like, how do you do that? What does that mean? And another one telling me, no, you need to fight. And, you got to get through this. You can't leave. You have your kids. You have your family, your friends, and, all that stuff. But the best way to describe it is I was fighting to stay awake and not fall asleep. But truly, it was more like I was fighting to live and not die, which I didn't really know at the time. And I do believe at one point there was a guardian angel or someone, like I said, we got some mood going on. My head's starting to tingle. there was a male nurse that was my nurse. Well, every day when the shift changes, the nurses would come in and introduce themselves. And I remember him coming in, and it's one of the only conversations I remember having with the staff, like a real, just not a nod my head or something. And I remember saying to someone he was cute as a button afterwards, because he had on, because they're double masked, he had a bandana on his head with buttons, because the strings, they bother the nurses, digs into their ears. And he came in and said, I don't remember his name. He told me that he was my night nurse, and we started talking. I remember asking him, how long has he been a nurse? And he told me that he was a vet and he had been discharged. And I remember him saying, like, it made it sound like it wasn't his choice to be discharged from I think it was the Army. Sounds like it was a medical thing. And it's not really important. But he said afterwards he went to nursing school and he had been a nurse for 3 years. And I remember asking him, do you like being a nurse? Do you like taking care of patients? And he told me how much he loved it. And it was his passion. He loved helping people. Now, I'm having this very clear conversation with him. And I could not, during this time, talk above a whisper. Now, I know people that know me is going to find that very ironic because I am so loud. But I really, truly, it was a struggle to even talk above a whisper, to answer simple questions that were yes, no, or whatever. But I was talking to him, and I remember it not being as hard. And in that conversation, we're talking about like how he likes to be a nurse and he finds it fulfilling. And he looked at me and he said, do you know that when you're sick, most of it is in your head, and all you need is to have a positive outlook and you'll be okay? And I remember he reached out and he just lightly touched my forehead. And I think I never saw him again. Now, granted, if he's my night nurse, the nurses were in there constantly. I remember seeing him once outside, like in the nurses station. Never saw this guy again the entire time. I do believe he was someone sent to talk to me, because for one thing, it's the only conversation I remember. But the words he said to me definitely stuck in my head and helped me fight to, come through to the other end. So, wasn't looking good. It's like every day there was bad news, nothing, it wasn't responding. Organs are shutting down. When my kidneys, stopped working, they didn't know why. And they started working again, and they don't know why. So, it took 4 days, I think it was, because I believe it was a Wednesday. They decided so we're going to go back to the kidney stent now. So I've had the stent in now for like a month and a half already. And, so now the urologist comes, and I remember him, who was wonderful, who I love. He, I remember being brought down to surgery because they were going to take it out and unfortunately put a new one in because it was malfunctioning. And he was like, looking at me, he's like, why are they just waiting now to call me? I'm like, I'm asking the same thing. So it had become dislodged and it wasn't working right. So unfortunately, though, they had to put a new one in. Because during this, medical crisis, they didn't want then me to have to pass a kidney stone. So I have that procedure. Now I'm in a regular room. And this is when now, like, I have more of I'm lucid now. Like, obviously, I'm still medicated. I had more bags I was getting pumped. Because once they identified what was causing the infections, they then were able to treat it with the appropriate antibiotics. So I was getting high test antibiotics. And to go back to the whole breathing thing, they ended up finding out I was filled with fluid, which was part of the reason why I was having a hard time breathing. Because when I fought with the nurses, when I got there, I said to them, which finally got me up to ICU was, you got to do something because I feel like I am drowning and I'm suffocating. And I was, because fluid was just building up everywhere. So once they, they did the diuretics and all that stuff, my breathing started to get better. I was on oxygen though for most of it. They started to wean me off once I was in a regular room. I did end up getting one more fever, but an old school nurse in the middle of the night, it wasn't the traditional approach, but it worked to break it, and it never came back. And they were shocked. Like, it was like a miracle that I was out of the ICU, because for one thing, they thought I wasn't even going to make it. They were coming up with like plan A, plan B. They thought I was going to be in the hospital for at least a month. And I was only there for 10 days. Like, the fact that I walked out of that hospital in 10 days was a miracle. It truly was. And I do believe that infectious disease doctor and everybody that were saying prayers for me or sending me healing energy or whatever they did is what got me through to be here today. So I was discharged. It's like I even forget, like, it's May 3rd. This all happened. My first day out of work was March 16th. I have never been out of work this long, except for when I had my son. So, I still have the stent, and I'm very weak, obviously. Like, the first time I had to stand up, I was like shocked how hard it was. Like, I had no strength whatsoever, and I couldn't eat. Food tasted like crap to me. Like, it was just, and now I'm feeling better. I just can't wait to come home. And whenever the day they said, you can be discharged, I was so happy and relieved, but also surprised, because now I've heard how sick I've been. But I'm okay to come home. But part of it too was because I was stable and doing better. They didn't want the risk of me catching something in the hospital, because let's face it, MRSA, COVID. I mean, they didn't want me. I was in a private room by this point. That is a story for another day. How that happened. But they felt like, instead of risking me catching something else at this point, I was better off coming home anyways. And I just remember, like, coming home, and for one thing, taking a shower was, there's nothing like a shower after you've been in the hospital. But also how it took everything out of me for a quick shower, and I then had to lay on the couch. So my recovery has been rough. So the kidney stent, miserable. The antibiotics, the regimen they had me on, I'm lucky I didn't come home with IV, to be honest, but they were really hard. I mean, they made me throw up, like, they gave me such stomach aches. I was taking probiotics so I spent I had to do this for 3 weeks. Literally, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was so sick, and my whole day just kind of worked around, what can I choke down today to eat so that I can then take these medications that I need to take. And, luckily Easter, I finished the course, and already, like, the next day I started to feel better. My stomach felt better, and food started tasting normal again. Things are still a little weird, but whatever. And, I have follow-ups, and I cannot do anything but lay on the couch. I have watched so much Netflix and Hulu and HBO, and it's really all I could do was lay on the couch and rest. Like, that was really that was about all I could handle. But it also, on the flip side, gave me time to reflect a lot. I meditated a lot during that time, because what else was I going to do? I had time on my hands. And also just having conversations with Danny, like, I started to finally ask him to fill in the blanks of what happened during that time. I do remember catching myself once in a while saying something that made no sense, but catching myself and like saying, "Yeah, just ignore me," because I don't even remember what I was saying. And then really have to hear the impact of you almost died, and then have to process what that was like for Danny to then have to tell my boys and my poor kids, like that, like I can't even imagine what that was like for them. Danny was great with keeping my family and friends and my coworkers and my, my boss, like everyone in the loop. I can't imagine what that was like for him to have to call my family to say, your daughter might die. Your niece might die. It's not looking good. And you can't even come see her. And it's like, I have family that lives out of state and stuff that there was nothing that they could do. There was no guarantee that I couldn't even talk to anybody on the phone. But having to hear what that was like and what Danny did for the boys to help support them through this was really hard and heartbreaking for me to hear. So I did have to process that, and it's not my fault. I know that, but it's still, I felt terrible that I put them through that. Even though it wasn't on purpose, obviously, but it was heart-wrenching. And then really come to terms with, oh, fuck, I really almost just died. I have a second chance at life. I'll joke and complain, oh, I'm 47, but I'm only 47. I still have so much life left. And now it's like I'm at this point with, okay, what do you want to do with this then? It's made me realize and appreciate how short life can be. And you just never know. Especially during the pandemic, we were all like, you're afraid to see people and all that stuff, and maybe not living your best life. And now this experience has been like, okay, you got a second chance. Now, what are you going to do with it? Because I do card readings and all that stuff, right? But I don't practice it as much as I should, because there's always an excuse. I have to work. I'm tired. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, it's time to stop making excuses. Like, my eating habits are ridiculous. It's time to kind of call myself out my bullshit and be like, what are you going to do? What makes you happy? Stop using these excuses. And also, on a side note, in February, right before I ended up in the hospital, a very good friend of mine passed away suddenly. He had been sick, and it was definitely unexpected. And I wasn't able to go to his services because I ended up in the hospital the first time, and, I couldn't do the drive and all that. So I ended up missing his services, and, then I got really sick. So also during this time, it's like I hadn't had a chance to grieve the loss of this friend. So I also had to deal with that because once again, he was only 52. And, life is and I'm so grateful like that. He's someone that I met through YouTube, which I know sounds weird, but, we had become friends, offline and stuff. I'm so grateful that over the last 6 months I got to know him, through text messages and stuff like that. But, he had a near death. He actually had many near death experiences. And I swear to God, hearing about his story and things that he went through kind of, I think, helped me to process some stuff. Because I remember driving home from the hospital, which was hilarious too, because I had no shoes, because I had gone there in an ambulance. I had to come home pretty much in a Johnny from the hospital, and luckily at that point, I had pajama pants, so I was quite the sight. Because everything looked so different. The world just looked illuminated to me. I just remember driving home from Beverly feeling like I was seeing the world for the first time through these new eyes. I know it sounds very strange. And this is already 35 minutes, so I think I'm going to try to wrap this up and probably try to do another video. But the good news is, yesterday, so I had my procedure for lithotripsy. I still needed to have that done. So I had that last week, and yesterday the kidney stent was finally removed. I had that thing for 2.5 months, and it literally hindered. I had to plan out if I was going to take a shower and decide if I was going to wash my hair, because could I stand that long to wash my hair? And it was miserable, just constant pain. So I was grumpy. I was grumpy. I was frustrated, but it's out. And today is the first day I have not had pain. And I haven't been able to leave the house except for to go to my doctor's appointments because of this. And today I actually got to leave my house, and I had to pick up a prescription, and I went to the grocery store. I do know that I still have to take it easy. I'm not fully recovered. By the time I got home, I did have to go lay down. My back was I had things foreign objects in my kidneys. So of course my back was a little sore. I know that I still I'm not fully recovered yet. I know this. I have to take it easy. I walked slowly through the stores. I had a list, and the timing was perfect because by the time I left the grocery store to get the few things, I knew I was maxed. But I was so grateful that I actually could finally go out and do something, because that had been one of my frustrations. Here I am not working. When have I ever not worked? And I'm not on vacation, but I couldn't even go do a simple errand. I couldn't do anything. I felt it was so frustrating to me, because if you know me, I'm always I always got a list going on. And it's, the universe will take you out. Let me tell you, the universe fucking took me out. That's for sure. But, I really want to try to make time for this sort of stuff, to make videos, do lives, put myself more out there. And it's not about making money. Of course, I would love to be able to read cards and pay my bills, but that's not life, right? But it's work that I enjoy doing, and it's something that I like, and why should I not make time for that and make time for myself? Because I'm actually a better person and a happier person when I meditate and ground and center, and I can provide messages of hope or connect with a loved one for somebody. That's what makes me happy. So, and of course, I bought 4 new card decks while I was, on leave, because what else are you going to do when Hay House is having a sale, right? So I think for today, my message, I just wanted to kind of say thank you to everyone for one thing, for all the prayers and the thoughts and the messages that I got, and the cards and everything. People were just so kind and generous. And just the gratitude I had that today I could actually go out, and I felt like a normal person for the first time in 2.5 months. But of course, I also couldn't come do this video and not at least pull a card, right, for the group. So one is from one of my new decks, because the person who does this deck is one of my favorite people that it was her name's Sandra Ann Taylor. Actually, her deck was the first one I learned on when I did the class. So whenever she releases a new one, I just always have to buy it. So she just released an Energy and Spirit Oracle deck. And the card that I pulled for today was Up from the Depths and Releasing Difficulties. And it was so perfect for, I came up from the depths. And it's everything I went through, I just need to let it go. And I love the card, it's all covered in purple, and she's walking she's walking into the light from the darkness. And I can hear that my son is home, so I'm saying this kind of quick because he's going to come down here any second. And then the second card I pulled from my Oracle of the 7 Energies, which is call up Baron Reed, who is also, she does fabulous cards. And I got Beautiful Uncaging, and it's the heart. So I do believe this whole experience has opened my heart up, and, you know, because, you know, people that know me, I don't like to feel the feels, but I've had to this whole time. In the message, so these messages are for everyone too. Everyone's been going through a hard time through the pandemic. And I know most, as you know, it's no big secret that mental health has been a big thing throughout this whole thing. So coming up from the deaths and releasing difficulties, do what you love. Life is short. You never know. I didn't know. Life is, you know, we always think, you know, there's always time. But then in a blink of an eye, it's 2 years later. Do what you love. Do what makes you happy. Whatever the difficulty is, let it go. Come out of the dark, come into the light. Be happy. Do what feeds your soul. And don't care what anyone else says. Don't let people get into your head. Whatever it is that you love to do, if it makes you happy, that's all that matters. And then, you know, Beautiful Uncaging. Open up your heart. Make sure that you always come from a place of love. If that's one thing, kindness. And, you know, I think through all this that I've gone through, people are going through, open up your heart. Just, you know, during even the hardest days, just always try to remember to have love in your heart and hope. So I think that's where I'm going to end for now. But I am truly going to try to make a better effort to be here. You know, if I'm going to practice what I just preached, then I need to hold myself accountable, right? And as everyone knows, now that I am better, if anyone wants a reading, you know how to reach out to me. Send me an instant message through Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. And I believe on this page is my contact information. So with that being said, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. And until next time, bye.